Hello, hello, everybody. I know this is a shock. We're live twice in 1 week. Don't get used to this, y'all, because this is not always going to happen. Excuse me. Sorry. I caught COVID at the beginning of July, and so every so often the cough sneaks up on me. Okay. So, today, we are very lucky to talk to somebody who has actually given birth in Mexico. Often, I get a lot of questions about the medical system here, what healthcare treatment is like. And so far, I haven't had any experience with it, I think, other than I got my yellow fever vaccine here. When I saw your post about, y'all had the baby and you had become permanent residents, I thought, wow, that would be great if she would come on the channel. And you were kind enough to say yes. Um, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you're here in the live and you've got questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. If you are watching this on the replay, you can drop your questions as well. Just might take a little longer to get you an answer. If somebody is new and the YouTube algorithm fed you this video and you're trying to figure out who is this woman and why would I want to watch her channel? Let me introduce myself. My name is Adelia Borishade, and I am the founder of Picky Girls Travel Solo. It is a Facebook group for Black women who are solo travelers, who want to be solo travelers, to share information, connect, network, all that good stuff. I am also the creator of the Financial Confidence Academy, which is a special place where I help women of color uh, master their money so that they can make financially confident decisions so that they can live the life that they want, whether that is traveling, whether that is moving abroad, it's opening a candle shop on Etsy, whatever it is. And I am an expat of 6 years. Um, and so I share my experiences traveling, living around the world. So if you're interested in travel, possibly moving abroad, trying to figure out the financial piece of it, this is probably the place for you. So go ahead and subscribe, turn on notifications, all of that good stuff. Hello, ladies. Hello, hello. Um, I figured I'd be catching some of y'all on your lunch break. Okay, so let's get down to the business at hand and my wonderful guest, um, Shanique of Fro Family Travels. Um, was it in 2018, 2019? Y'all decided to pack it in and become a nomadic family?
That's right. Yeah, 2018. Just over 4 years now.
Okay. And so a question I get often, because when I first moved abroad in 2016, my youngest was 15 years old, and so she came with me. And I was like a lot of people who thought, oh, well, I got to wait until she gets out of high school before I go. I changed my mind and I went anyway. But then I get questions from people who have small children. Because how old was your daughter at the time?
9 months.
Okay, so y'all decided to be a nomadic family with a 9-month-old.
Yeah.
I cannot speak to that because it was decades ago since I had a 9-month-old. But so I definitely want to dig into that because
Mm.
there's a lot of folks who want to know if that is possible. How does that work? But before we get into that, I am curious for myself. What made y'all make that decision?
Gosh. Um, the monotony of the UK, living in the UK. Both my husband and I worked in education. Um, Ironically enough, I was actually a careers advisor at the time. And I felt like I was selling a lie to these young people, because as far as the school system is concerned, they're encouraging you to go to university, get a good job, do all the things that society generally encourages you to do. And I just didn't feel like I was being my authentic self. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, because a lot of it, a lot of the school system comes down to ticking boxes and, you know, um, satisfying governors, etc., and it becomes less and less about the actual young people. And it just didn't feel good anymore. I was dreading waking up each day to go to work, and that feeling, it was I feel it, now I can reflect back, and it was anxiety, it was stress, and financially we were struggling as well. And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, basically, and crying at the end of the day, like I said, dreading to get up each morning, and I can't do this anymore. And we didn't have Taji, our daughter, at the time when we first made the decision, but we knew we wanted to have a family. And so I was kind of back and forth as to, should we start a family now? Should we go traveling? And my husband was like, why can't we do both? Why do we have to put our dream of starting a family on hold in order to do this thing of traveling the world, living abroad? Why can't we do both? And as I'm sure many other people think, we hear it often, but children need stability. They need to be around their family. They need to have access to good health care, etc., etc. You'd be crazy to do something like that. It's not being done. And when I was looking on YouTube, and I was being inspired by other people who were living this life of freedom, it was rare that we were seeing other people who looked like us, who were melanated. And I don't think I came across any other families, black families, that were doing it. And so it seemed almost impossible, but I just couldn't shift the need to just try. And I'm at a place now and then that I didn't want to live a life of regret. I didn't want to reach old age and think, what if we did do it? How differently could our lives have planned out? I hated the idea that I could look back and think with regret. And so we just decided, let's try it. What's the worst that could happen? We try it, we fail, we come back, we pick up where we left off. That's the worst that could happen, right? So it's worth trying.
Yeah, because you already know the life that you had. So what
Exactly.
do you really have to lose trying something new? Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, because I'm from the US, I'm sure you can tell probably that I'm from Texas by my use of the word y'all. Um, it's very interesting how similar your dissatisfaction with the life that you had there sounds to what I felt in the US and a lot of the women that I talk to. The whole thing of you're supposed to do these things, you're supposed to
Yeah.
achieve these things and check these boxes. And it's not working for us in the US, a lot of us, and I see it's not working for folks in the
Yeah.
UK as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's also interesting that your husband was the one who was like, but why can't we do both? Because the people I often talk to, it's, I'm on board. How do I get
Yeah.
my husband to come along?
Right. Right.
And on this channel, we're all about living a life of no regret because, I've to me having a regret, that's a far worse thing than trying
Exactly.
something and it not going the way I planned or even
Exactly.
quote unquote failing at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did y'all when you decided to travel, had you already had your daughter by that? I mean, like when y'all left, had was your daughter already
Yes.
born by then,
Yes. She was
correct?
born in London. She was born
Okay.
in London. So by the time she was born, we were kind of in preparation for leaving as well. It feels like, actually, 'cause I'm a big believer of manifestation, and your thoughts bring you your outcome and actions. And I had decided, when we kind of made the decision that we were going to do this, I'm I kind of very quietly said to myself, I'm going to quit my job by, it was March, the end of March 2017. And I don't know how. I didn't have a plan, didn't have anything worked out at all, but I had this idea that by 2017, I had to quit. I had to be done with working. And then 2018, the lease on our apartment was up. So we're leaving March 2018. So this was before she was born. Before she was even conceived, actually, I'd made that decision. And then it happened to work out that I fell pregnant, and I decided to take my maternity leave March 2017. It just very conveniently worked out that way, that yeah, I would take my maternity leave 2017 and I wouldn't go back to work. That would be it, because in the UK you can take up to a year's maternity leave. So that would take me until March 2018, and I would just inform them that I wasn't going to come back at that
The
point.
I firmly believe the universe tends to unfold as it should. So
Absolutely.
there you go.
Absolutely. It worked out perfectly for
Okay.
us.
So fast forward to March 2018, you've got a baby, your lease is up, and is there a specific plan about like we're going to for the next year we're going to hit these X number of countries? Was there a theme, or was it we're just not going to be here?
Partly, yes. We were stuck between whether to start in Europe or whether to start in Thailand. We made the decision that we were going to start with teaching online, and my husband was going to start with teaching online because obviously I had Taji to look after, so he would be teaching online whilst we build kind of our other income streams alongside that as well. And he was going to do an intensive course, and it was just, where is that going to happen? It's either going to happen in Spain or it's going to happen in Thailand. And we decided on Spain because it's one of the closest countries to the UK. So if anything went horribly wrong, we could catch a quick, cheap flight back to the UK if we needed. And he also, one of his brothers lives in Spain as well. So we knew we'd had family close by if we needed support as well. So that's why we decided on Spain. And we thought, as we're in Europe, we'd do a few countries in Europe and we'd just see. We had an idea for the rest of that year. So kind of from March 2018 up until the rest of that year. And then we said, after that, we'll kind of just see how it goes.
Now, was Brexit a thing then? I know, like, had they had the vote by then?
Good question. I don't think the vote had happened, but I think the different parties were arguing for and against the idea. So I think it had been proposed, but I don't think it actually happened. No, we were definitely still part of the EU when we were out, because I think
Okay.
that's why we were able to spend an extended period in Europe.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if that was already on the table, I would
yeah.
imagine that that would then impact some of your
Exactly.
planning because of how long you could be there. Okay. And so, excuse me. Um, y'all ended up in Ghana?
Last year, yes.
Okay. So was Ghana after Europe?
No, Southeast Asia was after Europe. So we spent the rest of 2018 in Europe. 2019, we spent in Southeast Asia and explored a few countries there. And then the end of 2019, literally New Year's Eve 2019, we landed in Mexico. And that was when kind of the pandemic hit. So we were in Mexico as the pandemic hit.
Okay. And so you mentioned y'all hadn't seen a lot of folks who were traveling as a family, definitely not melanated people who were. Um, as you started to live this experience, and I can't even imagine traveling Southeast Asia with a child. And I know there are children in Southeast Asia, but I still can't wrap my head around it. Um, did the experience prove to be like kind of what you had expected? Was it easier? Was it harder?
Both, all of it. I think some things were definitely easier than we expected. I don't feel that raising a child abroad is any harder than raising a child in the UK. We still have to deal with the same things. We still have big emotions to deal with. Those things are going to happen regardless of what country you're in. Healthcare hasn't been that different, kind of, in terms of getting access to good healthcare. I think that's one of the biggest concerns that people have. We've never had issues with accessing good healthcare while we've been traveling. So maybe some things have been a little bit more difficult for us to find. To say, for example, like finding nappies or diapers, if you call them in the US, is a bit more, it has been a bit more expensive maybe than it would have been in the UK. So it's more kind of like a cost thing, but then that's balanced out because our cost of living generally in most of the countries we travel to is more cost effective. So, it kind of balances out in some ways. And I think generally that our life has been enhanced because of the adventure in front of us. We're not just sending our daughter to kind of a regular school where she's just sitting in the classroom. So in many ways, I do think it's our experience parenting is easier and better because we have the whole world ahead of us. And our daughter is very much an adventurous and outgoing person. And so we just got to step outside and it's an adventure and she loves it. So that makes it easier for us and her personality, definitely.
I was thinking more of just the logistics of traveling with a child, and
Okay.
but no, you make some really, really good points, because again, like you said, folks who are considering this, because my response often when I get that question is like, well, like, is that what's a good country for children? Well, they have children everywhere. Like,
Exactly.
so but you do make a good point that um there is, just like the US is not the be all and end all, neither is the UK. You can find the things that you deem essential to raising your child literally wherever it is
Yeah.
that you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so Southeast Asia, you were in Ghana when, I love how y'all say you fell pregnant. That sounds so funny to me. Okay, so you fell pregnant in Ghana.
I did. Yeah. So that we landed in Ghana in June. Yeah, towards the end of June 29, 2021. 2021. Yeah, last year.
Okay, and um you have already said, like y'all were like, oh, we're going to travel and we're going to have a family. Did the timing of that pregnancy, did that then shift things? Like, I guess what I'm really interested in is why y'all didn't stay in Ghana and
Mm,
ended up coming to Mexico.
mm. Ghana was an interesting experience for us. I had been to Ghana in 2012, so a number of years ago. But it was a very short trip. It was only for like 2 or 3 weeks, and it was very specific to the experience and what we were going to be doing there. We had a particular mission there. Living in Ghana is a completely different experience. As with anything, visiting somewhere for a short period and living somewhere is a completely different experience. And we spent 4 months in Ghana, and our experience in Ghana was a real roller coaster. It was everything. We loved it. It was beautiful. Ghana is stunning, but it was challenging and it was draining at times, and it was very difficult, to be honest, in many ways. And I came to the realization that it was a struggle for us in many ways, actually, especially financially. It was very financially draining. We were staying in Accra, which is the capital, which is where many of our friends were. And that's why we wanted to be in the capital. Of course, we work online, so internet connectivity is very important to us. And structurally, some of the other towns didn't have the infrastructure that we needed for our lifestyle. So that's why we ended up in Accra. But it's incredibly expensive for us in Accra. Um, but we felt like we needed to be in the motherland. You know, we felt a calling to be in the motherland, as often many melanated people do. So we were grateful that we answered that call. We returned as we felt we should, but we were struggling to remain there. And we felt we had to be there. So we continued to struggle because we felt obligated to be there. And I remember one day and talking to my husband and being like, why are we struggling here? What, like, I don't feel that our life is supposed to be a struggle. And it's not to say that the struggle is Ghana itself, but wherever we would have landed in the world, if we were struggling, why are we
Because
continuing
that's
to
the whole
struggle?
reason you left the UK to begin with.
Exactly, exactly. It's like, this isn't fun. I don't like how hard, things like sometimes finding fresh fruit. We love having fresh fruits and juices for our breakfast, and sometimes finding fresh fruit in the city was very difficult. And you were being charged because you open your mouth and they hear that you're foreign, you're charged triple the price. And so you're constantly back and forth negotiating, and it was just a lot of work. And I was like, I feel our ancestors have been through enough. They've been through it. They did not go through all of this for us to then have to struggle. I think they endured what they did so that we could have ease and peace and joy. And like you said, that is exactly the reason why we left the UK in the first place. So I'm not saying that Ghana isn't somewhere that we could spend an extended period of time. I mean, it's definitely somewhere we want to return to because there's a lot of things that we loved about Ghana, but it's not really right for us right now. And we were starting to have this conversation before I knew that I was pregnant. And then we found out that I was pregnant. My daughter actually told us that I was pregnant, which was a whole other story. We found out I was pregnant, and then we looked at the fact that we were finding it a little bit difficult, and how beneficial would it be to us to remain in Ghana logistically, in terms of the benefits that maybe we could receive giving birth in Ghana. Of course, depending on where you give birth, there are certain benefits that can come with that. And we wanted to go back to the ease and the joy and what felt good for us. And the one country that we immediately, very quickly felt at home in was Mexico. From the first day that we landed in Mexico, we loved it. We fell in love with Mexico, and we felt that sense of ease and joy and peace. And so, kind of naturally, our thoughts went back to Mexico because we'd already been back. We'd already been twice before by
Mm-hmm.
then. So we thought about Mexico. And one of the benefits of giving birth in Mexico is the baby gets automatic citizenship. And as parents, as his carers, we would be entitled to permanent residency as well. And so that's why Mexico became one of those kind of at the forefront of our mind. But we also did explore the fact that Mexico is not the only country. There are a number of other countries that offers that. But Mexico is a country that we knew, and kind of it felt comfortable. And so for us, it made sense to journey back here.
I just want to backtrack a little bit. And you were saying about Ghana that it just wasn't the right fit for y'all to be there long term. And I'm glad you said that because when I do some one-on-one coaching as well, and that's one of the concerns I often hear is like, I'm trying to pick a country, and a lot of people put pressure on themselves to pick the right country the first
Yeah,
time
yeah,
out,
yep,
and
yep,
like, I can't get this wrong. And it's really like, one, you never know until you really get there and you start like trying to live the life you want there. So
yep,
for y'all having access to fruits and fresh fruits and vegetables or what have you, that was part of how you wanted to live your life. And it's not
yep,
until you're there that you realize like, oh, this is not going to work the way I thought it was.
exactly.
So I'm glad you said that, and y'all pivoted, which is what I often tell my clients is, you know, if you don't like it there,
Yeah,
you figure out these, if anything, choosing the wrong country helps you sort of pinpoint what are the things that are really and truly important to you when choosing another country to live in.
absolutely.
Okay. Now, I don't know how this works in the UK, but it has always struck me as very interesting, um, because in the US, there was this. I'm not going to use that term. I'm not going to use that term. But birth tourism is a thing. I taught in
Hmm.
China, and like all of these kids have US passports.
Mm.
They've never been. That's because they were born in the US. Because like it's a whole thing.
Hmm.
And what's interesting that the US is still a country with birthright citizenship, although I'm
It
sure there are
is.
some people who would like to change that.
Right.
Um, I don't in the US, we don't care if your parents are there, can be there to take care of you. Like in Mexico,
Mm.
because your child is a Mexican citizen, of course you would give the parents permanent residency, because as a Mexican citizen, your child is entitled to have his family with him.
Exactly.
And in the US, it's like, no, we'll deport y'all. And who cares what happens to your baby? So I find that so striking. And I think
Yeah.
it tells you a lot about the attitudes of one country versus another.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It was definitely one of the appeals, and why Mexico kind of resonated with us so much is they care about families, and we felt that in Mexico. Is they love our children so much, so it makes sense that they would offer, kind of that opportunity for parents. Like you said, it's of course a
Like that's a
child would.
no-brainer.
Exactly. But it shows they're family first. Definitely,
Yes.
I think there's a priority there for families.
Okay. So how pregnant were you by the time y'all arrived in Mexico?
I think I was about 3 months by
Okay.
then, 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that meant once you got to Mexico, you needed to go about like finding a obstetrician and all of that. How's your Spanish?
Minimal, to be honest. I get by. My listening skills are decent enough. My speaking, not so much. But actually, my husband's speaking skills are far better than mine. But my listening skills are a bit better than his. So we kind of work it out between us.
I know that your husband is Jamaican, right?
He is, yeah.
And I have a friend here who is Jamaican, and the enthusiasm with which she speaks Spanish, I aspire to, because
Right?
she just goes out there and does it, and I'm still over here trying to figure out what tent should I be in, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so what was that like, trying to like put together your team and find a doctor and a hospital? Like how does that even work?
Actually, for us, it was quite easy because when we were in Mexico the first time round, we made friends here very easily. It's Mexico is such an easy country to build community in, and one of the women that we became good friends with was on the verge of giving birth, and she told us about the birth center where she was going to give birth, and she shared her experience with us, and she said it was amazing, the birth team were fantastic. And so kind of I felt very confident after hearing her experience that that was probably where we'd want to give birth as well. So once we landed, it was just a matter of making an appointment first with the OB to do our ultrasound and check everything was okay, and then they do everything. They offer the whole package regardless of the type of birth that you want to have as well. So they'll support you through a home birth if you want. They will also support you through a hospital birth if that's your choosing. So yeah, I think because of that recommendation from our friend, and then I went online Their website is in Spanish and English, which makes it very convenient and helpful for us as well. So I was able to get the information that I wanted, and their midwife is actually from the US as well. So we communicated via WhatsApp. I could ask her any questions that I had, and she would do that online, or we could go into the birth center and do that. So yeah, it was very, very accommodating.
Okay. Danica had a question. Did you ever consider a midwife home birth? But it sounds like the birthing center gave you all of those
All the
options.
options, yes,
I don't
exactly.
know if you understand how incredible it what you just described is, um, because you're from the UK and healthcare is considered to be a right and not a privilege. But
Absolutely, yeah.
being from the US where healthcare is a privilege, the
Mm,
idea that you could WhatsApp message anyone involved, doctor, nurse, midwife, that's foreign to us.
right.
That does not exist. That you would go and because I imagine because I know here in Mexico City they do this. You go and they tell you up front, like, this is the cost of this
Yep,
package and this
yep,
is what you
exactly,
get.
exactly.
Whereas in the US, you don't find out any prices on anything until after the fact.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's crazy.
um, I know somebody watching this will be curious to know, did y'all have any kind of health insurance or were you paying for this all out of pocket?
This is all completely out of pocket. The health insurance that we use is emergency health, and generally everything else we cover out of pocket. Thankfully, we've never really had to use it, so this was kind of our first time actually kind of really paying for healthcare abroad. But it's very, very affordable, so it wasn't, we didn't kind of have to really think twice about it.
Okay. And this was in Playa del Carmen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And we had a question wondering if you could share the name of the birthing center?
Of course. Salud Primal. So SALUD Primal, PRIMAL.
Okay. Okay. And so, um, now you were here in Mexico. Y'all came December 2019.
The first
So
time, yes.
the
Yeah.
first, okay, well, when was it? Because was the pandemic already happening when you came this time, or
Yeah, so when we first landed, the pandemic hadn't happened, and we stayed as it was kind of emerging. And then
Mhm.
when we came back another time in between. But the third time, our most recent time, I get December 2021. So
Okay.
things are starting to open
Okay.
up more, and but Mexico, as you know, Mexico's kind of always been open anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, that the fact that Mexico never closed its borders, I'm sure made it that much more of an easier decision to come here. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So you're I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it because I'm sure someone is going to have this question.
Sure.
Your experience with the doctors and the appointments and all the things that go into with having a baby, were they any different than what you had experienced in the UK?
Completely different.
Oh, really? How
Yeah.
so?
So the first thing being our experience with the midwife in particular. In the UK, you don't know who your midwife is going to be in your lead up, in your prenatal appointments. You don't know who you're going to have, and there is no guarantee that you would necessarily have the same midwife throughout your pregnancy. And I think I had two midwives for my first pregnancy in the lead up, and for the birth as well was a different team of midwives. The difference here in Mexico at Salud Primal is one dedicated midwife through my pregnancy and for the birth as well. So we really got to know her. She really got to know us as well. It was very personalized, and I felt so comfortable with her. I trusted her. And compared to the UK, one of my midwives just, it was very difficult sometimes because I had an idea of the type of birth that I wanted to have, and she didn't necessarily agree with that. You know, she wanted to kind of, for everything to kind of be standard, and as far as you know, kind of the healthcare system generally promotes in the UK, which I didn't necessarily agree with everything. And in Mexico, it was, this is your birth. You get to decide the type of birth that you want to have, and I'm just here in a supportive role. Of course, you know, she has her expertise, and she will advise as to whether she thinks something is, you know, a good idea or not, or how that might impact on you. But the whole idea is, it's your birth, you take the lead on this. And I felt that, and I felt very empowered by that as well, compared to in the UK, it's, this is how birth is done.
And in the
You know?
US, it is, well, what does your insurance cover? Because
Oh
that's going to
wow.
determine
Yeah.
what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. So just being empowered was a huge plus for me in Mexico. And you know, people often think it's a strange decision to give birth in Mexico because, like you said, in the UK we have access to free healthcare. Not really free, but you know, generally kind of free because we pay it through our taxes. Um, so to leave that system and then have to go to Mexico and pay to give birth was kind of very strange to some people. But, and I think you have similar statistics in the US as well. In the UK, Black women are 5 times more likely to die during childbirth. I don't like those statistics. And part of the reason that happens is because Black women are not listened to. You know, we're not heard. So to go from that, you know, why would I choose that? So instead, we chose to come to Mexico, where, like I said, it was, this is your birth. How do you want to do this? What kind of environment do you want to have? You know, what, once baby is born, do you want to, you know, do you want to us to wipe the baby straight away? Do you want us to leave the baby, do skin to skin straight away? It was really, tell us what, you know, your preferences. Of course, if things change, then, you know, we'll, these are the options, these are the things that we can consider. But it really felt like we were leading this.
That's incredible. Um, I keep seeing people refer to Mexico as a third world country.
Hmm.
And first of all, we don't even use those terms anymore.
No.
But what else? You know, that's really not like, just like there are parts of the US you can go to where people do not have running water, they do not have sanitation service, you know, you can find that here in Mexico as well. But I
Exactly.
think some people also think like, oh, well, would the doctors know what to do? Like that these are not trained professionals.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and even still, like our midwife, she said that she spent some time in, like, up in the mountains in I think it was in Peru, I think she said, learning from some of the native midwives there. And she was like, the most, you know, kind of empowering and best experience for her, you know, really challenged her. And that's someone that was trained in the US, and she was able to come up with techniques and stuff that our midwives had never even considered. You know,
Yeah,
so just because we have different environments doesn't mean that they might be any less capable than anyone else.
exactly. Another question: how did your provider integrate your family into the birthing process? Did they respect your husband?
Absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, they were amazing every step of the way. You know, my husband and I generally work where, of course, I'm leading in how the process is going. But if I get into a position where I can't advocate for myself, or I'm struggling to communicate, he knows me. He knows to be able, that he can advocate on my behalf, and does. And they absolutely listen to him as well. There was part of the birth where I was struggling. And he was able to share that and to kind of dictate that things needed to change, or we need to change the situation. Our daughter was present while I was laboring as well, so they were like, yeah, if you want your child to be present, that's absolutely fine, and we can support you through that. We can support her as well, so very accommodating for our family.
Roughly, how much did it cost to give birth in Mexico?
So it depends on the type of birth
Hmm.
that you have, of course. And of course, this is a private facility. So in a public facility, it might be cheaper. But for us, we paid, I want to say overall, because I had a bit of a complicated birth, so it ended up being more expensive than it would have been. Overall, I think we spent about 70,000 pesos. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what that might be.
80,000 would be 4,000 US.
Okay.
I, I should not be doing math in my head. I know 20,000 pesos is 1,000 US dollars.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's where I came from with 80 should be about 4 grand
Yeah.
US.
So, but that was with complications. Had it had been a straightforward birth, it would have been a third of that.
Oh, wow.
So that's what
Wow.
we were. That is what we were aiming for. It would have been about 30,000, just under 30,000, and it ended up being almost 80.
I I don't, I mean, I assume in the UK health system that giving birth is free.
It is, yeah,
In the US, again, it's all about how much insurance you have.
yeah,
And with both of mine, it was like, we think the insurance is going to like it's really waiting on pins and needles afterward to see, are there going to be any bills that come that,
yeah,
and no. Uh the price that you just said, that might be the co-payment for the anesthesiologist.
yeah.
So and this was a private facility. This
Yes,
is like,
this is top
exclusive.
notch.
This is
Yeah,
top notch. This is
yeah,
like high end.
yes,
And that
yeah.
just blows my mind. Blows my mind. Yes, Angela, you are right. You could easily spend what you spent with insurance and would actually be getting off kind of lucky. Like, oh, it's just
Wow,
under $4,000 is all I had
wow,
to pay. Yeah, it's
wow.
wild. It's
Yeah,
wild.
that is.
Okay. Now, uh something I did not know before I moved to Mexico City, I joined one of the mom groups and there were several ladies who were like pregnant, they were trying to find out about doctors, and the topic of C-sections came up, and I did not
Mm,
know that. I know Mexico has a higher rate,
it does, yeah.
and I believe Mexico City has even a higher rate.
Mm,
And I got the impression from the post that I read that often doctors want to push you that way versus natural. And
right.
so I'm curious about your experience with that because I know that you did indeed end up having a C section.
Yes, I did. It was never something that was kind of encouraged. Like I said, because of the way that Salud Primal works, they are kind of birth first and woman first. So
That's
it is,
incredible.
yeah, it is you lead. If you want the C section, that is an option, but it's definitely not a priority. It's definitely not the first thing that they would focus on. It's what type of birth do you want? And actually, I would say that C sections are kind of in the minority of births that they end up giving at Salud Primal. So it definitely is the minority for that facility in particular. Obviously, I can't speak for the rest of Playa del Carmen, but it was only the C-section was very last minute. Like we planned a home birth actually, um, and then there were some complications while I was in labor. I didn't feel that I could continue in that way, and actually it ended up it was for good reason. I had a fibroid that was blocking the birth canal.
Oh no.
Yeah. But like I said, it worked out because I felt something felt wrong while I was laboring, and I felt like and I had actually a very easy labor. I was laboring absolutely fine, but I something snapped, and I felt, no, this isn't right. I need to. I actually said I need to go to the hospital, and my midwife was like, "What? What are you talking about? Like,
We've
you're
talked
doing
about this.
amazing." Exactly. It wasn't. I think we mentioned it during our sessions with her. We talked about C-section one time. It's just a okay, because we like to consider all the options, and in case things don't go according to plan, what are our options. And so we mentioned it one time, and it was just like, yeah, if things start to go wrong, this is the options, this is how much it's going to cost. So that was literally the only conversation we even had about C-section up until me being ready to give birth. So it was the whole idea of the C-section was very, very last minute.
Okay. Oops, there was a question. That's kind of related to that. What was the transport to the birth center, to the hospital? Like, how did that all work? Did everybody work together?
That was a little bit more complicated because it was an unplanned C-section. So the way that it worked is I had my birth team, which consisted of two midwives and a doula. That was planned for the home birth, and then they have the OB, GYN, and the hospital team on standby in case the circumstances change. And so, if it seemed like things were going to change, then the midwives get in touch with the OB and say, this is what we're looking at now. And so, the idea initially was the OB was supposed to come. We actually ended up at the birth center. The OB was supposed to come to the birth center to examine me and see if a C section would be needed. But I was adamant, no, we got to go right
We need to
now.
go.
Yeah. So normally they might send a car to come and pick you up, and kind of it would be a bit more organized. But because of the way everything unfolded, we just jumped into one of the midwives' car and we just went. It was kind of, so it wasn't didn't go, kind of go according to plan, but yeah, we just jumped in the car with the midwives.
I was going to say, or you could have taken an Uber, but I forgot you were in Playa
There's
del
no
Carmen,
Uber.
so there's no
Yeah.
Uber. Because here, I would imagine you would take an Uber. Um, I'm curious about ambulances because
Mm,
I this is one of the things you learn when you move abroad, that we make these assumptions like, oh, these some basic fundamental things are the same around the world. And I discovered, y'all, those of you who have watched my other video have heard me talk about this documentary on Netflix called Midnight Family, and it follows a family that runs an ambulance service here in Mexico City.
okay.
I thought in the US, ambulances are at the fire department. So, like, they go hand in hand. I
Okay.
get here and find out that in this city of 22 million people, there are about 35 ambulances owned by Mexico City that they run. Everything else is a private ambulance, and the quality of them varies greatly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, that blew my mind. So, that's why I was curious if ambulances are even a thing there, or if you know anything about how they work.
Not really, to be honest. I guess they are, but I don't think they're used frequently. So we did have an issue a couple of years ago. My husband needed to go to hospital quite urgently, and we spoke to the doctor who came. Then he came and examined him, and he was like, yeah, we need to just jump in a car. There is no
Okay.
point in even trying to call an ambulance. They're not going to get here. The time it's going to take for all that to happen will be too late.
And that
So
that
yeah.
sounds about the same here. It's often just better for you if either you have a car or you can call an Uber or a taxi or
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. So you ended up having the C-section. Um Is it Danica or Danica? She's here to get the answers, and I love it. I love it. She's curious. How were you advised about vaginal birth after cesarean?
So it's all depending on timing, I guess. Our midwife in our first session after baby was born, we did briefly talk about it, and she said it depends on how quickly you would fall pregnant. If you ended up being pregnant within, I think she said about, did she say within a year and a half or so, then they would not encourage
A
a VBAC.
vaginal birth.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they wouldn't encourage it. They would say ideally you would want to leave a couple of years after having a C-section if you wanted to have a vaginal birth after
Okay.
that.
Okay. And so, you had the baby, healthy baby. I heard you say he was like an 8 pounder.
Yeah, almost 8.5. Yeah.
Okay. So big, healthy baby.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, when was he born?
18th of May.
Okay. So we're talking about like this all just
Recently.
happened.
Yeah, it just
This all
happened.
just happened. Okay. So, um, how long did I forgot I wanted to ask this question. How long did you get to stay in the hospital after the C-section?
We were in there for 3 days.
Okay.
My husband
Okay.
stayed with me as well for the 3 days. My mum was here, so she had my daughter for that time. So yeah, we were there for 3 days. I healed quite well, so there wasn't any need for me to stay any longer than that.
Um, so, because I asked this because in the US, they are literally pushing you out the door, often
Mm,
whether you should be going or not. So
wow.
you feel like had you not healed as well, like you'd have been fine to continue to stay there. There wouldn't have been this need to push you out the door.
No, definitely
Okay.
not. Definitely not.
Okay. 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 So now y'all are a family of four.
Mhm.
The baby was born in May. It is now the beginning of August.
Yeah.
Um, Getting his birth certificate and all of that, that was fairly easy.
Mostly a couple of complications. I was getting some misinformation about getting the birth certificate, and I was hearing people saying that it was costing them as well, which didn't sound right to me because I'm thinking it's a birth certificate. Like,
Yeah. Like the first one at least should be free.
why would you be paying for a birth certificate? So unfortunately, I guess some people are trying to make some extra money and maybe charging for that service where they shouldn't be. And we did encounter that when we first went to get his birth certificate. The first person that we spoke to tried to charge us, but it didn't feel right.
Hmm.
I was thinking, no, I'm sure this isn't supposed to happen. And a friend of ours did say that they had a Spanish friend with them when they went to organize the
Okay.
birth certificate.
So wait a minute. When you went to get the birth certificate, this was like at the official government office?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I recently lost my residency card. Don't do
Right.
that. Don't do
Oh,
that.
I've heard.
Okay. Let
I've
me tell
heard.
you, don't do it. And I noticed that there was a lot of, like the guy who was waiting on me would do something, but then he'd have to take it to somebody else, and
Exactly
and
that.
I was
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know what?
Yeah.
I bet there is a serious problem, or this is their attempt at trying to nip things like that in the bud. So
I think so, because that's exactly what happened. We started filling out the document at the front desk, and then it was okay. We need to go to this room to finish the document, and we're thinking, but we've started here. Why do we need to move to another room
because
to
there's no
finish the
cameras in
document?
that room, probably.
Yeah, I think so. And then it was at that point that it was like, okay, we can have this ready for you in a few hours, and the cost is 2,000 pesos. And I'm like,
Okay, there's no way Mexican locals are paying 2,000 pesos because y'all,
exactly,
that's $100. Nobody's paying a
exactly.
hundred dollars to get a birth
To give
certificate.
birth.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. So I was like, no, this doesn't sound right. And so we left there. We were like, okay, walked out, went back to reception, And I said to my husband, I said, ask how much it would be if we wanted to collect it tomorrow. And when we asked that, the guy at reception said, let me just call back the other guy. So he couldn't give us a straight answer. And so that for me immediately was like, okay, no, this isn't how we're going to do
Yeah,
this.
y'all are
We'll
running
go
y'all are
away
running a
and
scam
yeah,
here.
yeah, we're going to go away. We're going to come back tomorrow. And we ended up having a different person, and of course, who didn't ask for any money at all. And we, were able to sort that out absolutely fine. And it was helpful. They are bilingual. The people that we dealt with as well, so they were able to help us out with the form. It was pretty straightforward anyway, but they did help us with the
I
forms.
because I watched something on your IG where you were talking about like people being bilingual, like that worked at immigration, and that must be a function of it being Playa del Carmen and the number of tourists.
Maybe,
Because
yeah.
here in Mexico City, there's like one guy that speaks English, and it's not great. Like there, because he used some
Yeah.
words that I was like, those words change the meaning of what you're trying to say, and I don't think you get that that's what's
Yeah, yeah,
happening.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
that's fortunate that there you did have some folks who spoke English. um before we get into the residency, I did mean to ask, how did you pay for the birth? Did they want payment up front? Did they accept credit cards? Did it have to be cash?
They do accept credit cards, but with a fee on top. It was like 3% on top. So you could pay in cash, you could pay per card. That was up to you. We had to pay for the home birth 3 weeks, by 3 weeks before I was due to give birth, my due date. And then obviously because we had the complications, so we had to pay for the C-section before leaving the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that sounds about right. But I know that is one thing that's a little different in the US. They will let you leave and then they will
Right.
surprise you with bills.
Yeah.
Whereas here they're like, no, we need to be confident we're going to get this money.
Oh
So
yeah.
you need to stay here until you can come
Yeah.
up with the money or somebody you
Exactly.
know.
Exactly that. Yeah. Yeah. Because everything was happening really quickly. Um, okay, because there were two parts of the bill that we had to pay actually, because we had to pay the hospital. So Salud Primao rents out a hospital room, and yeah, a room to do the C-sections in. So we had to pay the hospital for their room. That had to be paid before the C-section actually. Now that I remember that, like you said, they want to make sure they're getting their money. So the hospital had to be paid before the C-section. So my mum paid that because of everything that was going on. And then for the OBGYN, he just was happy with that being paid before we left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. How did COVID impact your hospital experience? Did they limit visitors?
Um, no, not because of COVID. They didn't. The only limits was for some reason, which I did find was a little bit strange. They were okay with, because my mum was there, my cousin and my sister were there, so they were all able to come in to the hospital room fine. But they weren't too comfortable with the children being there.
Huh.
So yeah, which was a little bit strange. So my daughter was only able to come in for about 15 minutes, and they didn't even want her to come in at all, actually. Yeah, they kind of just said it had to be very quick.
Okay.
And then within like 15 minutes, they were there kind of waiting for her to come out of the room.
Well, and something else to keep in mind, if anybody is wondering, in Mexico, um, officially, COVID is endemic.
Mm,
It is no longer considered to be a pandemic.
pandemic, yeah.
So I'm not surprised that they are no longer doing that sort of thing, because that was very much the case 2 years ago when I
Exactly.
got back. that they were limiting who could go into the hospital with you
Yeah.
and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we first started talking about y'all's decision to give birth in Mexico, we
Hmm.
mentioned the fact that as the parents of a Mexican citizen, you are entitled to permanent residency.
Right.
But it's not like they show up at the hospital and they're like, here's your residency card.
No.
You still have to go through residency through family reunification.
It
Is that
is.
what this
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
considered? Okay. So mom and dad get residency. What about big sister?
Yes, she does not automatically get residency because you can't pass a residency to your siblings. So she gets her residency through mum and
Permanent.
dad.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you and your husband needed to get permanent first, and
residency
then
first.
because so that y'all could be reunited with your son,
Yeah,
and then you
exactly.
will go through another process
That's right.
as you a permanent resident, and this is a
Yeah,
minor child of yours, your daughter,
exactly.
to get her residency. Now,
Yeah,
will her residency be temporary or will it be permanent?
it will be permanent as
Okay.
well. Yeah, yeah, it will
Okay.
be permanent too.
Now, has that, because I think I saw your post was like at the end of July is when you and your husband got y'all's
That's
residency.
right. Yeah, it's not been
Okay.
very long.
Okay. And have y'all started the process for your daughter yet?
We've started the process. It's more complicated than we realized it would be, unfortunately. So it is going to take a little bit longer because with children getting residency, you have to have their birth certificate apostilled.
Yeah.
Apostilled, is that the word? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, the British embassy here isn't really able to help with that. So we actually have to, and I guess because of the nature of our lifestyle, we have all of the most important documents here in Mexico with us, her birth certificate. Um,
But
so
as far as they're concerned, that is just a piece of paper
yeah,
until it has been apostilled and it has
yeah,
been I think you also have to get it translated too, don't you?
translated as well, exactly. So what we're having to do is we're having to get her passport, another copy of her passport, sorry, another copy of her birth certificate created in the UK, and then having to send that to be apostilled in the UK, and then have that document sent to Mexico so that we can then begin the process of
Yes.
residency for her. So it is a more complicated process, and it's something we're still kind of going through because we've got family that should be coming out soon. So we're thinking actually it might be easier to get them to bring it because of the time period it's going to take for it to come all the way from the UK to Mexico. So yeah, that one's kind of a lot more difficult. Not difficult, it's just a longer process.
It's more, and this is why when I have clients who are moving abroad with minor children, one of the things I mention is birth certificates, marriage licenses, any of those if you've got minor
Yeah,
children, you'll want to get those things. And there's apostilled, and then there's another thing, and it depends on the country you're going to,
right, yeah,
which one they accept.
yeah.
Is it authentication? I can't remember. But if you're moving abroad with minor children, you will need to look into that for the places that you're going to go, because
Absolutely.
your birth certificate is literally just a piece of paper. They're like, I don't know what this
Yeah, it
is.
doesn't prove anything officially.
No.
Yeah, I wish we'd known that before. We had no idea. And it's a little bit frustrating, like I said, because my mum was here,
Yeah.
and if we'd known, we would have got her to bring it with her. So yeah, it was just a little bit frustrating. We didn't know. It's a common oversight when we've been kind of talking to other families that have kind of gone through a similar process. All of their children is taken far longer for them to organize the residency for their children because of that oversight. And it's like, yeah, we got to go back to the home country to get that sorted first before we can finish the process.
Okay. So, now you're from the UK, your husband is Jamaican, your
Yes.
son was born in Mexico.
Yeah.
So, by my math, he's technically entitled to be a citizen of three different
Three countries.
countries.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are y'all planning to pursue that?
100%. Most definitely. So yeah, as you said, my husband's Jamaican. I am actually of Jamaican descent as well. So my dad was born in Jamaica. My grandparents on both sides are Jamaican as well. So we're in the process of organizing second passports for all of us,
Okay.
and then what will then be a third passport, and citizenship, for Amal as well. So yeah, he already has citizenship for two countries, and yeah, we've got to work on that third one.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I love it.
Okay, let's see if there are any more questions that maybe I didn't catch. Okay, here's one. Okay, she's a doula. That
Mm,
makes complete sense. What is postpartum care experience like, or what was it like for you here in Mexico?
it's really up to you. You can kind of take everything or take none of it. It's really led by you. They do. Our midwife did visit me while we were in the hospital as well, and then she did a home visit. Um, I think, yeah, definitely within kind of the first couple of weeks of him being born. They do have services where they can do a traditional bath, with herbs, and they asked if we wanted to keep the placenta, what we wanted to do with the placenta as well. So you kind of create and kind of customize your experience. It is all down to you, but they absolutely, at Salud Primao specifically, they will support you through that if you want to have kind of that entire package as well. They taught us at the hospital, because I had the C-section as well. They taught us how to kind of wrap, or they taught my husband, I should say, how to wrap my belly as well, so that we could continue that process with helping kind of my womb and everything to heal as well, which was not something that they do kind of by standard in the UK. And that was the hospital that offered that service. So my husband learned how to wrap my stomach, and we continued that practice as we got home as well. So yeah, it's kind of whatever you want, they'll support you with it here. Absolutely.
Okay. Um, any plans to move elsewhere? Because I mean, y'all
Hmm.
started this adventure as nomads.
Absolutely, yeah. I think where we are right now, like you said, because we did start as nomads, and we love being nomads. We definitely love exploring different cultures and countries. It did start to get a bit exhausting, kind of conveniently as the pandemic was happening. So that forced us to slow down anyway, and we actually realized we kind of like slowing down. So now we're in a place where we think we want to secure a base country or two, maybe, but at least one base country that we can call home. And now that we have our residency here, we think that Mexico could be one of those bases. But we probably would like to add another, maybe one or two countries to that, potentially bounce between a few different countries. Like we said, we're in the process of organizing our Jamaican passports currently as well. So we're potentially thinking that Jamaica could be one of those countries. And the benefit of having a Jamaican passport is that then opens up opportunities to the other islands, even to Ghana as well. You know, you can go to Ghana visa free if you have a Jamaican passport. So we're open to exploring kind of some of the other islands. We loved our time in Southeast Asia, so we're constantly talking about and dreaming about spending more time there. We don't know completely, to be honest. I think right now, though, we'll probably explore Mexico a bit more and see some of the. We've only ever been in the Quintana Roo state. in our time here, apart from to sort out our residency as we went to Merida. But we definitely want to explore Mexico. We love it here, and we'd love to fall in love with some other states and see what they have to offer as well. So we think Mexico will be the base for now, but there's a whole world out there. We definitely want to see as much of it as we can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, I don't see any more questions in the chat, and I'm looking down at my questions, and I think we have answered all of them. So, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate you being so transparent and so willing to share your experience with us. Thank you so much for that. If you are wanting to follow their adventures, they are on IG at Fro Family Travels and the number one.
Yes.
Um, and I would say what IG is probably the best place for people to go.
Yeah, that's generally where we spend most of our time. We're kind of getting into the swing of creating a YouTube channel, so we are on YouTube as well and starting to post a bit more on there too. Facebook, my personal Facebook profile is open. So if you put in Fro Family Travels, it will come up with the page and usually my profile too. So yeah, we are generally very transparent, but I would say Instagram is probably the best place to follow us.
And I've linked their Instagram in the description of the video. So y'all can go there and follow them. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate you. Bye, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.